Hey, John Harris here with the Rock Metal Podcast. Join me as we get to go behind the scenes into what goes into producing records and making music as we interview some of our favorite and soon-to-be favorite bands. Today we're chatting with Chase Wilson of SULFUR. For fans of Lorna, Carnifex, Whitechapel, and As I Lay Dying, we'll be chatting about SULFUR's new album, The Burden of Faith. Produced and recorded by Morgoth, Beatz, and Logan, mixed and mastered by Josh Shroeder. We'll get to hear the story about how all of that came to be, how being authentic leads to success, and so much more. So please stay tuned to the very end. But first, let's check in with our beautiful sponsors. Asher Media Relations, doing public relations for everything loud. For your band needs to be seen and heard in print, online, and radio. Head over to AsherMediaRelations.com. That's AsherMediaRelations.com. Mention the Rock Metal Podcast and get your band noticed. Syndicol Music is a full-service agency for musicians offering record label services, marketing, branding, production, and management. Head over to syndicolmusic.com. That's syndicolmusic.com. SYNDICOL music.com. Mention the Rock Metal Podcast and take your music career to the next level. Well, Chase, go ahead and say hi to all of our beautiful listeners.
What's up, everybody? How you doing?
Absolutely beautiful and great to have you here to discuss The Burden of Faith, my friend. What was the greatest moment for you producing this record?
Oh man, there's so many.
Take us through them all.
I'll give you like a top three. Obviously, tracking Earthen was an experience just because of how emotional the song was, and like seeing Ricky put all of his emotion into that song vocally, and kind of channeling what I was trying to put forward into that song was kind of crazy to see. So that's definitely number one. Number two is the ending title track, the breakdown on The Burden of Faith, and having all of us in the studio and drop tuning that guitar down and seeing everybody's like stank face and like of approval. That was definitely one of my like hell yeah moments, like I was very stoked as a writer for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of three is hearing everything mixed, mastered, polished, and ready to go for like public consumption. Like it's kind of a great feeling when you finally finish something that's been in the works for so long. So those are my top moments for sure.
Okay, beautiful. Tracking Earthen, the breakdown of Burden of Faith, doing the drop tuning, the stank face of approval, and then hearing everything mixed, mastered, and polished for human consumption, or if you're Death Clock, then it's for fish consumption, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Revisiting some of those, I was like, oh, I love this show.
Oh man, that's one of my favorites for sure.
Beautiful. Now, some of what that does is takes us into some of the themes on the record, which we'll get to in a moment, but I wanted to touch base on, were there any challenges for the record? And I noticed that you mentioned that, the songs have been waiting to give birth for quite some time. Was that part of the challenge? Was there anything else that maybe you learned from on producing this record?
I mean, it's kind of our first go at doing a band like this, and like a lot of us have only like been in local bands or maybe like regional touring bands that never really got as far as SULFUR has within the past 2 years. So I would say the biggest challenge is like I started writing as soon as we did like one of our first tours with Signs of the Swarm and Worm Shepherd. Like right after we came back from that, I wrote Earthen. And between then and the time we recorded, it was like a year, but that year did not feel like that. It felt like a month or 2 months. So we were like, trying to do the balancing act of touring and, writing and, marketing and all sorts of things. And it's all very new for everybody. So there were a few challenges, but I mean, I feel like diamonds are made under pressure. You can either crack or you can make diamonds. And that's what I feel like. I think that we did. It's subjective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was it charcoal? If under pressure it becomes a diamond, or it just stays charcoal and you get some hot dogs or something, it's just,
yeah.
You have barbecue or you have a diamond. I'd rather have barbecue personally.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like hot dogs?
Come on. Right. Now, one of the things you mentioned there was a first go at a band like this, only been in local bands or regional touring bands, and then the balancing act that has become the new treadmill, I guess you could say, that you're on. I've got a tour and I've got to write and I've got to market. Like what's going on here? What was that like? And how did you? I mean, it's kind of a silly question, but how did you know you had you walked through the teleportation or whatever it is? How did you know you hit that point where, okay, we've hit new territory. We're not just a local band anymore?
I mean, that kind of happened when we started releasing the first few songs, really. And we got our manager, Bradley, and he was like, okay, we're doing this and we're doing that. And we're doing, everything. And that was the point where I was like, whoa, okay. This is no longer just an internet project. This is real life now. This is the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was probably at that point where I started to realize we've got to kind of get our stuff in order.
Okay, super serious stuff. Getting a manager, especially one named Brad or Bradley, getting the sensation that this isn't just an internet project anymore. You got to get your stuff together. But I mean, I'm super curious. What did you do that was different this time around?
We had the Ricky Hoover cheat code. No,
which is backpack A, backpack B.
Yeah, it's like a Mortal Kombat fatality. Yeah. No, I mean, that definitely had something to do with it. And Ricky coming back to music was a big deal. I feel like it's weird because even this, I feel like is kind of gaining a lot more traction than Suffocate did back in the day as well. Like we're pretty much on equal footing now, I feel like, with where that was. And it's probably due, in fact, that we all have kind of different influences in our music and the way we write music. We're taking this a lot more seriously than we would for local bands and stuff like that. And the biggest thing with that is you got to work with people who are willing to kind of take the leap with you. And, there's going to be some struggles and stuff like that, but you got to anticipate. But it's worth it in the long run. So I feel like that's what's kind of different is we definitely see the fruits of our labor more so in this band, more so than any other project we've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I read all of that in the EPK. I put something up on the internet and it exploded, and it's funny. I almost hate that story. It's like you're leaving out so many important details. What do you mean? You just yeah. You just put something on the internet and that's it, right? But sometimes there's a magic thing that sort of happens, and something I've heard before chatting with other bands, especially ones who've been at it for a long time, 25, 30 years, is, I don't even know if we started today, I don't even know if it would take. It was just that time and that place for what we were doing. And I think now is your time and place, Chase.
No, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah. But that's cool. Seeing the fruits of the labor, different influences in the music, which I know, at least from what I'm reading anyway, has surprised quite a few people with the different influences and the way that they're getting hit and pulled and tugged, all in very good ways. It's a good kind of tug, not a bad kind of tug.
Yeah, you never want a bad tug.
Never want a bad tug. And then I read that a mutual friend actually connected you two together, yeah?
Yeah, most definitely. That was our friend Alexis. She's known Ricky for years, and she lives in Vegas. So with that, she pretty much saw that he posted, "I want to start a technical death metal band." She goes, "Hey, I threw your name in the ring," and I was like, "I can't play that." She's like, "Well, I think he just wants people to jam with, so whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure. Ricky Hoover will just DM me later tonight." And he DM'd me later that night. So I spoke it into existence.
Right. Okay, so the Tony Robbins thing of speaking things into existence, it works.
Oh, I guess so.
Okay. Perfect.
Never know unless you try, I guess.
That's exactly right. Okay, now going back to some of the themes that are on the record, because I remember you had mentioned when I said, hey, what's the greatest moment for you producing this record? You said tracking Earthen because of how much emotion that there is in it. And in the EPK, I definitely read about that, and I read about several of the other elements that have gone into the project lyrically, emotionally, musically. But I'm just going to let you roll with that, and with just a blank, not a blank question, but like a broad stroke question. But just Chase, take us through the themes on this record.
Oh man, I mean, with this one, we kind of broadened our horizons a little bit. I mean, obviously, Oblivion was very much so religion, hate, anti-God, type feel, which is still in this record. There is a lot of that, and we kind of wanted to broaden our horizons with maybe like, why do we feel this way? Especially like with something like Earthen, that not only atheists or like whatever can relate to, but like, even like God-fearing people can be, what kind of God would test a child, is in the chorus of that song. And that was how Ricky was feeling during that moment when he lost his nephew, and he decided to be vulnerable and kind of share that with everybody. So you've got that, and Befouler is kind of more so about the music industry and how many snakes there are, and people that will be cool to you to your face and then kind of like talk shit behind your back. Mm-hmm. So, it's, we broadened our horizons a lot and kind of like wear our emotions a little bit more on our sleeve on this record. And, we wanted to talk about things with a little bit more substance, and you can talk about religion and how bad it is all day long, but if you kind of don't explain why, it's kind of like overdone, Mm-hmm. Like, mm-hmm. So that's what we try to do with this record. And, hopefully people catch on to that a lot more.
Yeah, that's really good. Mentioning the religion thing, it's like, okay, well, country songs are about my dog running away. What are metal songs about? I hate religion, and war is cool, or it's not cool, or something, right? Like every genre has its like trope topics. But what you guys did was fantastic. You said, okay, I feel this way, but let me dig deeper. Let me unpackage. Why do I feel that way? And then allowing yourself to be vulnerable on paper for people, which I've heard in the past that's usually a hallmark of success. Do you feel that going vulnerable on this record has also enabled the band to pick up more speed than it may not have had?
Yes, absolutely. Our whole thing is about like the band just kind of has like an unspoken agreement that we're just going to be genuine dudes. Like, like we're not the metal band that pretends to be angry and beat your ass on stage. Like we smile, we goof around, we stick our tongues out. It's like, like it's fun for us. And when we're writing music, we want to write things that we feel strongly about. We want people to connect with us. We want people to really understand where and what we're feeling, or why and what we're feeling, I guess I should say. But yeah, I feel like authenticity is kind of like a key to success for sure. And like I said, hopefully that happens with this record.
Yeah. Now, Earthen, going back to that track, because you had mentioned that, with your guitar parts, you wanted to try and capture that same level of emotion. And I don't know how possible it is as a guitar player to answer this question, but how did you do that?
It's one of those things where it's like, I will sit down. I'm the type of person that has to be inspired before they write, like if I'm feeling a certain type of way and I sit down to write, I want to put that feeling into my guitar. If I'm sad, I want my guitar to weep. If I'm angry, I want it to fucking just crush, and in order to do that, I feel like you really have to hone in on what you're trying to do and like what you're trying to put into your DAW or your put on paper, quote unquote. But it's one of those things, I can't really explain it. It's so hard, but you can definitely put some emotion into that. Like Earthen being an example, I guess you have that somber, melancholy intro, and then the lead in that is extremely like sad sounding as well, and it's like hard to explain why it sounds like that, but if you send it to like 5 people, I'm sure they'd say the same thing. Even our managers like, oh man, that lead is like crazy, and you can tell how sad this song is. And Befouler's another example. It's just a complete ass beater of a fucking song. So it's like we were very angry when we wrote that one. You know, it's just drivey, and then the end is just crushing. So it's hard to say how we do it, but it kind of just comes naturally, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm. I just imagined you on a date for some reason, just telling the girl, well, it's an ass beater of a song. I mean, I was angry, and it just comes naturally. That's actually what I my one-liner when I go on dates. So yeah. I'm glad you picked that up. Yeah. Abso-freaking-lutely, baby. Now, I heard the word DAW in there. So, you know, for everybody listening in, that is the digital audio workstation. And you'd also mentioned at one point here in the beginning, you'd mentioned the drop tuning. You know, it did it on the breakdown for Burden of Faith. So was there any gear that you used on this record that surprised you, or was it all pretty par for the course for you? What kind of...
I mean, we've been using the Digitech whammy with the detune function on for a while. And we brought it into the studio just in case we were going to use it. We didn't anticipate on it or anything like that, but we used it, and like, it was kind of just magic. We actually, during the mixing and mastering, you hear it on Befouler as well, and that wasn't planned. Like, I think Josh Shroeder had something to do with that, and just like made Befouler crush like at the very end as well. So I feel like that was definitely a piece of equipment that we utilized pretty frequently. And then, I mean, it was the rest was pretty par for the course. You know, tone wise, I told everybody I wanted to go for like PV 6505 or 5150 head through a Mesa cab, which is your standard heavy metal deathcore guitar. So
yeah, Digitech whammy with the detuner, which you brought into the studio just in case you were going to use it. And it sounds like, I don't know, Josh used something on Befouler, and going for that PV 6505 or 5150 guitar tone with the Mesa boogie cabinet. And as you said, standard heavy metal deathcore guitar. Now, did you shoot any DIs? Or for those listening in who don't know what a DI is, it's where you take the guitar signal raw and send it to a producer so that they can then do what they will with it. They can put it into any amp they want. Did you give them DIs? Do you know? Do you know what happened there?
Yeah, we did give him DIs. So we actually we tracked guitar with Logan Mader from Machine Head in Vegas, and we used his Kemper, and we tracked DI, and we tracked with the Kemper tone as well. So it captured all of that, and we sent all that over to Josh Shroeder, and he was like, "What are we going for here?" And I told him, and he was like, "Perfect, got it,
perfect. I've got that right here. Click."
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah. So
beautiful.
It was great.
More to come, but let's go ahead and check in with our beautiful sponsors. Two Madsen is responsible for producing, mixing, and mastering some of the best metal for over the last 20 years. From Meshuggah to The Haunted to Poison Black, Kemper Profiler packs for guitar players, and Easy Drummer expansion packs for programming drums. Two Madsen can take your production to a level previously unheard. Head over to twomadsen.com. That's twomadsen.com. TUEMADSEN. Click contact. Fill out the info for your next project, and let Two know that the Rock Metal Podcast sent you. Wormhole Death is a modern record label, publishing, and film production company born in 2008. Getting signed to this label means global distribution, publishing, and marketing with Wormhole Death's roster of global partnerships. Head over to wormholedeath.com. That's wormholedeath.com. Submit your band and let them know the Rock Metal Podcast sent you. How would you define success at this stage of your career?
Probably success to me, and this not everybody else might agree with this in my band. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I can't speak for them. But when you're proud of the music that you're putting out and people are just vibing with it, and you start to see kind of like I said earlier, like the fruits of your labor, that is what success is to me. It's not about money. It's not about, getting rad tours is awesome, but it's not about that stuff. It's about being happy with where you're at. That's what success is to me. If I'm just being completely honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're putting something out into the universe, and the universe is agreeing back with you, and you're getting a positive feedback loop. And obviously, there's going to be some negative stuff in there too, as it would go. But do you feel part of? Cause earlier you mentioned, we're not a local band anymore. Now we're doing something real. Is that feedback loop a part of that equation?
I would like to hope so. Yeah, people were stoked with the stuff we had put out with the Oblivion EP. And it was great. It was cool, and I was very happy then. I'm even happier now because I feel like we've kind of evolved like several steps ahead from where that was. And I just feel like being happy and grateful for everything that you have really does make things less shitty. Like, there are things in the business aspect that are like maybe not so fun, and like, things that you got to do, but as long as you're grateful and you're happy to do them, and like this is what you want to do and you're doing the thing, then that's all that really matters. It really is. Like, I mean, people can define success by loads of more things like money and like fame and popularity and this and that and the other thing, and it's just that's all materialistic type stuff, and I'm just not that type of person. So,
and I just had Madonna come into my head. I think it was the way you said material. Material. Oh, no.
It's going to be stuck in my head all night.
Yeah. Oh, it's a worm. Somebody was talking to me about that song the other day, and so I pulled it up. I listened to it for about 30 seconds. Oh, yeah. She's not singing in the right key. And the producer, I read this tidbit, the producer tried to get her to change the key. She didn't want to. So I listened to it, and yeah, she's straining. And then for an entire week straight, I'm like, oh. And now it's back again. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. Now, something that you had mentioned earlier on, Chase, was working with, I always thought it was Shroeder. Maybe I was saying it wrong, Shroeder. But Josh Shroeder, who has worked with quite a few notable bands. Tala for sure, Lorna Shore for sure.
Yes.
What was it like working with him? Take us through that. I mean, you mentioned that... I've got it in my notes up here. As soon as I find it, Digitech, Whammy Pedal, Befouler. He turned the whole thing into this crushing dream of beautiful 5150 glory.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, man. I mean, it's awesome working with that dude. And, we worked with a crazy team on this record. Like it was Morgoth Beatz, producing and doing the synth and producing vocals. We had Logan Mader, who's tracked the guitar, and Josh Shroeder, who mixed, mastered, and kind of did his Shroeder magic. I'm pretty sure it's Shroeder. That's what I've been saying. Hopefully, I'm not butchering that.
You've been offending him the whole time, and you had no idea.
I had no idea. I'm sorry, Josh. But no, it was amazing working with that guy, dude. Like you said, he's a legend. In kind of like the deathcore genre, and not just the deathcore genre. He's done like Burials, he's done King 810, he's done crazy stuff, and I think, he definitely added his touch on this record as well. And it was definitely a pleasure working with that guy, as well as the rest of the team. Like, honestly, I feel like if we didn't have the entire team, we wouldn't have the sound of this record, so that's definitely something I'm super hyped on, is we had such an amazing team to work with.
Yeah. I mean, I would be hyped too, working with such an amazing team. We had Morgoth Beatz to help with vocals, Logan Mader to help with guitars, Josh Shroeder to help bring it all together. What's the number one thing that you would like people listening to do right now?
What I would like them to do? I don't know, tell a friend, share it. And word of mouth is just as good a marketing tool as anything else. Hopefully connect with it. Like, I hope that something we say maybe helps somebody, or, somebody can relate if they're having a hard time. But those are the things I would probably say if they're listening right now, is like, that we care, and thank you if you're supporting us.
Yeah. Tell a friend, share it. I always think of the Wayne's World, and then their friends tell their friends, and then their friends tell their friends. It just goes on and on and on. Word of mouth is still the most powerful thing in the entire world, as long as humans do such a thing. Connect with the record. Someone can relate to it if they're having a hard time. So that's cool that you guys wrote the kind of music that you chose to write or felt compelled to write, but still wanted to connect with people. And I think that's showing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Track guitars with Logan Mader, because you mentioned there was quite the production team. We got Morgoth Beatz doing synth and vocals, Logan Mader helping out with the guitars. Specifically, I guess, because, you know, you're the guitar player. We'll chat about that. What was it like working with someone to help you track guitars and then maybe even branch into Logan specifically?
I mean, dude, Logan's a legend. So, you know, having the dude
also Canadian. So yeah, I mean, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, a lot of great Canadians. Like our manager's Canadian too. Love him.
Sweet. That keeps happening. I keep hearing that.
I know. Yeah, it's great. But yeah, Logan's an awesome dude. And like, you know, we got his insight in playing guitar. And, you know, I went in there thinking like, oh man, this guy's going to put me through boot camp. He's such a good player and this and that. And like, he is the chillest dude ever. Like, we had such a good time tracking with him. He is such a nice dude. And like, his insight was, you know, unparalleled to anybody else I've ever tracked guitar with. So being that we got like his kind of like stamp of approval as well was kind of like
the stank
awesome.
Face. You got some stank face from him.
When we got the stank face from Logan, he just like we didn't even know, like we had plugged the bass in and down tuned the bass even for that, and he goes, did it work? And then he played it back and he goes, oh. And I was like, he's like, it worked. I was like, yeah man, sick. So
the bass is tuned.
Logan was awesome.
Yeah, the bass is tuned so low you need bell bottoms to feel the breeze.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. Well, everyone listening in, go ahead and head over to therockmetalpodcast.ca. There you'll get all the show notes for today, transcripts, music videos, links to connect with Of Sulfur. And speaking of which, Chase, thank you so much for coming on to the Rock Metal Podcast today.
Hell yeah.
And that's it for this episode of the Rock Metal Podcast. Stay tuned because next week we're going to be chatting with Mark Haleman of the band Suicide Silence. They wanted to make their latest record as heavy as possible. They worked with Taylor Young as producer, and they even got to record drums at Studio 606. Go ahead and hit subscribe on your podcast player, share it with your friends, and I'll see you next week.